That intro still makes me laugh. I mean, I would like to say that that's a gross exaggeration of what it's like having to deal with me here at Chase from the Couch, but it really is not. Either way, welcome back, and we hope you enjoy the views from the On Fek Circle, presented, if not endorsed, by your source for quality Blue Jays coverage, jaysfromthecouch.com. I am your host, the duly appointed Shadow General Manager of your Toronto Blue Jays, the Fekless Wonders, Steve Fek. The On Fek Circle is your scheduled starter on Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and I am followed in the rotation by Karen Suter and Sunny Side of the Dome Thursdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, during the offseason, we're kind of alternating like in every other week. So we're only on approximately twice a month. If you are unfortunate enough that my show falls the third time in a month, I apologize in advance for that. But Karen keeps a Blue Jays colored lens focused on all the offseason transactions and brings a heart of the order that hits in the clutch and scores big every time. But we all look to our staff base, senior editor Shaun Doyle, to deliver the big wins as host and moderator of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, Mondays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. 314 podcasts in the record books. Blue Jays Talk for All in your podcast feeds. And coming up on the 16th of November over on Slasher Sports, the OK Baseball podcast will kick off. Little cross cooperation, if you will, between ourselves and Slasher Sports. I myself also do college sports on a Slasher U podcast. But Shaun's going to be doing a great job. He's going to be covering all 30 teams, not just the Blue Jays. So make sure you look for the shameless promotion we're all going to do for this show. Shaun's going to do a great job, and I know you're really going to enjoy it. It'll help that off-season move even faster and be more enjoyable for you. Now, the entire Jays from the Couch roster streams live on our YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter account. And all shows are available on demand as an audio podcast everywhere you find your favorite podcasts. Happy 2023 baseball season, Blue Jay fans. Yeah, I know what the calendar says. Okay, I'm old and doddering, but I do have moments of lucidity. Okay. It's sort of like at the car dealership. Right now, they're advertising all the new 2023 models of cars and trucks. Once the World Series champion is determined and that clock strikes 12, the new baseball season automatically begins. So we are now in the 2023 baseball season. We've had players opt in, opt out. Other roster decisions have been formally announced. Many of them we already sort of suspected for a lot of teams. Not a whole lot going on the Blue Jays front, which in some ways is a good thing because we only have 3 free agents really to worry about. And they're 3 free agents where if all 3 of them would leave, I mean, they would be missed, but I don't know that it would have a serious effect on what happens in 2023. We've even had a trade already. And ironies of ironies, a former Toronto Blue Jays general manager was the first guy to pull the trigger. Alex Anthopoulos traded for a left-handed hitting outfielder named Sam Hilliard from the Colorado Rockies. He gave up on minor league prospect pitcher, last name of Spain. I want to say it's Derek Spain, if I remember right, but I could be wrong there. But left-handed hitter. He's displayed some power. He's actually hit for more power in the majors than he has at the minors. He's hit for a higher average at AA and AAA for the Rockies over the last couple of years. Excellent defender. I mean, he is a plus defender at every position, including center field, but his best position probably is left field. So that, so let's say that a different Toronto Blue Jays general manager would have thought about acquiring a guy like Sam Hilliard. The Rockies had to make room on their 40-man roster. So rather than DFA him, get rid of nothing, they basically moved Hilliard for a pretty low-cost minor league pitcher. Imagine that, a Blue Jays general manager that would have the foresight to think ahead and say, here's a bargain and we can save some money in the long term. He's under club control for at least 2 more years, I believe. He is out of options, so he would have to make the roster. But Sam Hilliard has productive left-handed bench bat written all over him. He could fill in the roles that have been filled by Bradley Zimmer and by Jackie Bradley Jr. He could play in all the outfield spots. He's a plus defender. He would probably be automatically the best defender on the Blue Jays had our general manager had the foresight to pick up the phone, call the Colorado Rockies, and say, hey, what's going on there? But literally within 24 hours of the new season beginning, we already had a trade by Alex Anthopoulos. And my campaign continues as your shadow GM, always working for you. I'm going to work endlessly and tirelessly to bring Alex Anthopoulos back to Toronto and end the slumming it with Atkins era that we're experiencing here now. But I don't want to get too bogged down in that right away. We are going to get to some Fekless Wonders, and there is a Shadow GM report, and we're going to talk about in that Shadow GM report how our front office could learn some lessons from another general manager that just happened to be in the World Series this past year. But I want to throw out some ceremonial first pitches. First, JaysFromTheCouch.com is your source for quality Blue Jays coverage, really from the first pitch of spring training to the last pitch of the playoffs, whenever, hopefully we're going to be able to extend that time as far as game reporting goes. But throughout the whole offseason, we're already having a nice review by Ryan Mueller of minor leaguers at the various levels by position. We're going to have some player report cards coming out on a regular basis. There's always something to read about. We've got 2 really solid writers that to take a look at things from an analytical point of view. Shaun Doyle, Karen Suter, people that you see here on the YouTube channel and listen to on the podcast feed. They have regular articles coming out every once in a while. I am lucid enough to actually produce something. So make sure you go every day to JaysFromTheCouch.com to help you figure out and help you navigate what's going to be a very complicated offseason, I think. And while you're at the website, scroll down and look for the Jays from the Couch versus ALS campaign section. Click on there. You can make a tax-deductible, secure donation right there from our site to ALS Canada and help them find a cure and find medications and fund researchers to end the scourge that is ALS. ALS has a direct baseball connection. For better or worse, it's associated with Lou Gehrig, but through the years, players, coaches, we just had a prominent national baseball writer come out and saying that she's suffering from ALS. So there's a baseball connection to all of this, but ultimately there's also personal connections. There's probably somebody in your life that either as a friend or a friend of a friend or a family member of a friend, or your own family that has been diagnosed and watched them suffer the ravages of this disease. I know it's affected my family. It's affected our founder, Shaun Doyle's family. So please do consider making a tax-deductible donation. But let's say you're funny about how you spend your money. You're like, if I'm going to spend money, I want to get something back from it. If you look over here, you'll see our JFT versus ALS campaign, proud supporter of ALS Canada shirts. You can get a really cool On Fek Circle shirt, Sunny Side of the Dome, Jays from the Couch radio podcast, Jays from the Couch general merchandise. Every purchase that you make, 100% of the profits go directly to ALS Canada to help fund all the initiatives that I was just talking about. So please try to make that part of your visit to jasonthecouch.com, especially during this holiday season. What better gift? You're not sure, you have that family member that has everything, or a friend that, is really into causes and really believes in sharing the wealth and making a difference. Make a donation in their name to ALS Canada through the Jason McCouch versus ALS campaign. Time for a Fekless Wonder. Now, that's my nickname, so it's a clever little tie-in there. But Fekless Wonders really throw out questions that have been turning about in my head, or that have been troubling my mind. And I think they will get you to think about various aspects of your fandom, or how you're looking at a particular transaction or a particular player's performance, or what the front office is doing, whatever it would be. Today, my Fekless Wonder is, I wonder why the overwhelming number of Blue Jay fans just refuse to face the reality that this team, as it is constructed, has issues, and it is not a World Series team. All of us went into the 2022 season with, if you want to call them unrealistic expectations, okay. I mean, I certainly has turned out that way, but certainly back in January, February, March, when the season started, we didn't think that they were unrealistic, on any level. And really, based on the core talent that this team has, was a team that should have won the AL East and could have made a deep run in the American League playoff bracket and gotten to the World Series. But right now, we're grieving. This was one of the most, if not the most, disappointing and painful losses in Blue Jays history. And I am old enough, and I remember vividly the 1987 collapse in the last week of the season when the Blue Jays coughed up a 4.5 game lead with 7 games left to the Detroit Tigers. I didn't think anything could possibly be more painful than that. And that loss was really directly attributed to then manager Jimmy Williams, who, for all of his years in baseball and all of his accolades that he received for being a great instructor and a great coach, he was one of the worst managers in baseball history. And you think, if I'm exaggerating, look it up. Google Jimmy Williams and look at some of the reports from fans in Houston, fans in Boston. So for me, up until this particular year, I mean, I didn't think anything could ever approach that in Blue Jay history. I didn't think that the baseball gods would allow that to happen. But our front office allowed this to happen. The difference between what, let's say, Rob Thompson did after being hired to replace Joe Girardi and take over a team, greatly improve their regular season record, and then get into the playoffs and ultimately to the World Series. And they had the Astros, on the ledge there a little bit. A couple of things went the right way. The Phillies could be the world champs and not the Astros. But the difference between the Phillies situation and the Blue Jays situation is John Schneider came in, did an amazing job turning around the fortunes of a team that was struggling and floundering under Charlie Montoyo. But he didn't have the unflinching, indecisive front office to help him. I mean, all of those things. And I was going in a different direction, so I apologize for the hesitation there. He had to deal with an indecisive front office. He didn't have all the chips in. I don't care if I make a mistake. I trust my talent evaluation. Dave Dombrowski led front office in Philadelphia. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the Shadow GM report. But you see over there in the bottom right-hand corner, my favorite Blue Jay graphic. In fact, I think it should be the alternate logo for the Blue Jays until they actually get to a World Series. And that's an ostrich with the head in the sand. That's what we're doing. Many of you are putting your head in the sand and you're like, no, everything's okay. We have Vladdy, we have Bo, we have Alek Manoah, we have Jose Barrios, we have Kevin Gausman, we have Jordan Romano. We have younger talent at the lower levels of the minor leagues. Everything's okay. It's not okay. Making the playoffs, okay, we did it after falling painfully short last year. It's no longer acceptable to just make the playoffs. And it's certainly not acceptable to get swept at home in the wild card round. But I get it. We're grieving. And when you're grieving, you go through various stages. And one of those stages is denial. You just don't want to accept as reality that the team you love and the team you invest so much in, emotionally, financially, personally, it is not perfect. It's not alive. Okay. The Blue Jays of 2022 are deader than Elvis. We need to put that behind us. We just have to say, hey, we have to get past it. And and I get it. When you're going through a grieving and you lose something, the Blue Jays were like a loving relationship, romantic relationship for a lot of us. There are mistresses, and then we try to hide it, from the people that we're with or whatever. But deeply, deeply in love with that. And I know what it's like to have a relationship that you've invested so much in suddenly just taken away. And it could be because of a breakup. It could be because of a death. It could be because of a marine. It doesn't matter. It really hurts. And sometimes you feel like you just can't get past it. So the easy thing is to deny it and say, well, everything's okay. And, this is going to happen and everything's going to work out in the end. Eventually you need to come to a point. You need to face those demons head on and say, we need to do something about this. We can't just stand aside and let things happen. We have to get involved. We have to have our voice heard. We have to demand things get better. So don't be an ostrich, Blue Jay fans. I'm begging you for your own good. Okay. It doesn't matter whether it annoys me or, it upsets other people on Twitter or other social media outlets. None of that matters. The grieving process can still continue, but you can move forward. You can expect and demand better. And right now, that loving relationship that we thought was so perfect in 2022, it's gone. It is no longer real. Is it over? We still have to have seasons to play out over the next couple of years to see whether it's that particular love affair is over. But it doesn't mean that you just say, well, sure. You keep making mistakes, or it's okay. You didn't mean to stand me up or disappoint me or forget this. Okay. You don't bring me flowers, whatever you want to put, label you want to put on it. Face it. Okay. Embrace that pain and run toward it. Don't run away from it and stick your head in the sand like that ostrich there. Run toward it and say, hey, it can be better. It can work out, but you've got to work at it too. And that you is the Blue Jays front office. We need a fifth starter. There are no legitimate arms in the organization, no matter how much that Atkins and Charlie Montoyo and even Pete Walker have been telling us since 2019 that there's all of these arms that will be able to fill whatever role we need at the major league level. So we can be really cute to try to play the analytical game like they do in Tampa or in Oakland, Houston. We don't have that depth and quality of major league ready arms. In the bullpen, we need to add depth. It can't just be Romano and Garcia and Simber and Tim Meza. And speaking of Tim Meza, he's the only legitimate left-handed option this team has. And the reason I'm not mentioning Matt Gage is because the front office seems to have totally forgotten about him. As effective as he was, they left him down to AAA Buffalo for August and September. Tim Meza can't pitch every day. He's basically fully recovered from a serious arm injury. But, no pitcher could pitch every day. The days of the Mike Marshalls and Sparky Lyles and Raleigh Fingers, they're done. It wouldn't hurt to bring in an upgrade, a defensive upgrade at shortstop, and have that tough conversation with Bo Bichette and move him to second base. These are all things that we need to talk to with our lovers, with our Toronto Blue Jays front office. We need to have these conversations out in the open, either by responding to shows like this, sending your tweets of your own, blogging, letters, rocks through the windows of the Blue Jays offices, whatever it takes, get their attention and let them know that you're no longer just keeping your head in the sand and hoping that when you pick up your head, everything's okay. So it's time for the Shadow GM report. And until my campaign to bring back AA is successful, the Jays need to look to other successful front offices to figure out how to get a talented team like the Blue Jays to the World Series. As negative as that previous segment might have seemed, the talent is there. Going back to the love affair or lost love affair analogy, that love is real. Okay. The things that created those feelings and developed those feelings, it's very, very real. But it's not perfect. We need to work on ourselves, maybe, again, not being so passive, not sticking our heads in the sand, but we need to expect the front office to get it done. No more excuses, no more, it's part of the process, no more, ultimately it rests with me. None of that bullshit, if you pardon my French. Okay. We need action. Atkins and actions both begin with the letter A, but they could not be farther apart in the prism of Major League Baseball. And it should really be really easy for Los Atkins. And yes, I'm going to keep calling him Los Atkins until he puts together a roster and gets us beyond the first round of the playoffs. But really, he has to get this team to the World Series within the next 2 years. Otherwise, the financial ramifications of decisions that have been made with free agents and pending free agents to be, and Guerrero and Bichette and Manoah and a lot of the young core, I mean, eventually, that bill is going to come due. So the time is now. If you went about 14 minutes south of the Dunedin complex on US 19, down the Clearwater, where the Philadelphia Phillies, National League pennant winning Philadelphia Phillies. And thank God they got that far, because all of my FECU projections for the season all fell apart and blew up in my face, except for the Phillies going to the World Series. So it's not going to put them out of their way to go down to that complex and try to pick up tips to build the Dave Dombrowski model. And it's a situation that Atkins and Shapiro also should be familiar with, because when Dombrowski came to the Detroit Tigers in the AL Central, they made the Cleveland Indians at that time irrelevant because of his aggressiveness and his willingness to do what is necessary to get the team this year as far as they could go. And if you make a mistake, you own up to it. Hey, I made a mistake, but you draft well, you go back out, you retool. You're not just hoping a process plays out the way the computer says it's going to tell you it is. You actually do something about it. And there's something that of the Phillies for this year that I think could be helpful for Los Atkins and the front office and John Schneider to adopt. When Dombrowski was hired to try to fix the mess that the Phillies had become, they didn't have the farm system that the Blue Jays have. Even now, with all the graduations from the minors up to the major league roster or players that are traded away, the Blue Jays farm system is far and away superior and deeper than the Phillies. Dombrowski realized, okay, he didn't pretend and look at projections and try to lick their wounds from bad draft and bad development choices with pitchers that came into the Blue Jays organization. Okay. He said, look, we just don't have the talent. But but what we do have are a lot of people that can hit. So we're going to add to that. And we're going to just slug and club our way and beat our opponents that way into submission by just being able to score more runs at will than the other teams. The Blue Jays are 2 years away from having meaningful, true impact pitchers available to supplement the major league roster. They've already done some pretty major investments in the free agent market as far as starting pitching goes with Barrios and Gausman. That's the most expensive of any of the player commodities out there, is starting pitching. But what they could do is go out and just make their offense even deeper. So while these younger players develop, and perhaps through the trade market, or perhaps through, a waiver claim or an in-season trade, to improve your pitching for down the stretch, you just go and say, we're going to get as many hitters as we can. And maybe if you're really aggressive and you really think beyond the thing, like a Dave Dombrowski does, you get some pitching also kicked into deals, and you're going to have to let go of players that you really value. If you're so confident in your drafting ability and then the talent that you bring into the organization, which is what Atkins basically has been trying to sell us that. And it has failed miserably for the most part. Okay. Vladdy was signed by Alex Anthopoulos. It's an international free agent. The other kids, Bichette, no-brainer. Manoah, give him credit on Manoah. Not a lot of people saw in Manoah what Ross Atkins did, though really that was a Ben Cherington pick, a Ben Cherington find. but still adopt. Okay, your plan hasn't worked, and it's not going to work. At least not for another 2 years until some of those really promising pitchers, a crop of pitchers, are ready. So look to Dombrowski. Maybe develop an uber offense that other teams' pitching staffs and offenses won't be able, and lineups won't be able to match up. And don't be afraid to make a mistake. Dombrowski's had so many successes. Miguel Cabrera from the Marlins. But he's had some miserable failures. Remember, he traded away Randy Johnson when he was the head of the Montreal Expos. But he could afford to do that because he did draft effectively in Montreal and in Florida. Okay, he traded away Trevor Hoffman, but he got Gary Sheffield. He's not afraid to make a mistake. He's not afraid to pay a price to get value in return to make his team a winner, because ultimately that's what it's all about, is making your team a winner. So Los Atkins, why don't you give Dave a call? Maybe you might not be able to work out a deal, but maybe you'll learn something. And you would think that you would have learned sitting behind Shapiro and Chris Antonetti when you were in Cleveland and saw how the Tigers year in, year out, outmaneuvered you, outspent you, outdrafted you. We're really out of time here. Before we go, though, let's see what the sweet, crispy fate of fortune cookies have for our Blue Jays this week before we sign off. Balance life with a little sweet and sour. Well, I'm your sour. Karen Suter, Sunny Side of the Dome this Thursday, will be your sweet. And nothing is sweeter than the Jason the Couch radio podcast, which will be on next Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find all of our shows anywhere you get your finer podcasts. I am your shadow general manager who will work tirelessly for you to make sure this Blue Jay team. Yeah, I'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll talk about maybe Chris Antonetti in the Shadow GM Report next time. But until then, let's go Jays. Stay active in the offseason. Check in with JasonTheCouch.com for all your Blue Jays news and analysis.